Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is othering. And what's the dynamic that is at play when we cultivate factions, and let's look at the impact of this phenomenon on us as individuals and us culturally. I think it should be an interesting conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells, all your electrons and your molecules, lighting you up from the inside out. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Very softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms and feel the deliciousness of that sensation. Allow yourselves to become present right here, right now, in these marvelous physical forms that we're inhabiting. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Isabel. So good to have you here with us, and so good to have everybody joining us today. I think that this topic of othering is a really, really valuable and important conversation because somehow it's interesting to me, but I think that when we do this as a society a lot, where we create an enemy, and or a fall boy, or I forget what the frame. Oh my gosh, my words this morning. I forget what the term is, but essentially scapegoats or the object of blame gives us an opportunity to focus all of our fears and hostilities and lay blame, so that it gives us the illusion of a greater sense of control when we can blame, identify an enemy, right? Identify an enemy. So we see this where we had a lot of political upset, and there were factions and sides, and a lot of opposition, a lot of name calling on either side. We see it happening racially. We see it happening with religious groups. We saw it with 9/11, where we were able to, identify foreign threats and vilify whole groups of people. We saw it with COVID, with vilifying Asian people, just on and on and on. And it's an interesting phenomenon to look at. I mean, I think we see it with COVID now, with people who were vaccinated and not vaccinated, and this whole big polarization and camps and righteous indignation and fury, and it's kind of like a license for crazy is what I see about it. And I'm gonna put a link in the chat for an article by Charles Eisenstein that I found really, really powerful. And good morning, Lisa. So good to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about othering. And this article that Charles Eisenstein wrote, he's kind of a modern day philosopher. And he's a scholarly guy and has written a bunch of different books that are really powerful. And he looks at cultural trends. And this, the article that he wrote is called Mob Morality and the Unvaxxed. And I think that this is really interesting. He starts it off with a quote from Joseph Goebbels, who was Hitler's right-hand guy. And he says, propaganda, this is from Joseph Goebbels, propaganda must facilitate the displacement of aggression by targeting or by specifying the targets for hatred. And I think that, you know, we've been talking about free will and choice and how we are very much at the effect of the indoctrination that we are subject to. And I think that this is a very, very important and interesting dynamic to be looking at, is that it is about displacement of not only aggression, but fear, as far as I can tell. That when we have the opportunity to create scapegoats, to blame certain groups for the upset and the disruption in the world, then it's an offset. You know, it's a way to diffuse that emotional energy and angst and social energy as well. And I think that this community uniquely, perhaps, is able to be looking at this notion of othering and how we tend to be very tribal in so many ways, whether through our religion or through our neighborhood or through our political associations or our even just our families or the regions where we grow up. There are so many ways that we are tribal, and there's such an urgent call right now, well, always, but now more than ever, for us to be building bridges, to be finding ways to understand one another, to connect with one another, to overcome and evolve beyond our tribalism, our native tribalism. And I'm sorry if I'm using, I know, I realize that there's, that I don't know a better word to use right now. I know that word is largely associated when we talk about tribes of people. It's associated with indigenous cultures, and I apologize if there's any offense in the way that I'm using the word. I apologize for that. I don't know a better word to use. I don't have another word to use. Factionalism, and I don't believe that. Now I've got myself into a pickle here. I certainly don't believe that the tribes of indigenous people are are guilty of what I'm talking about. So I apologize. I'll reshape this, and I'll use the word factionalism. So I hope that you guys will forgive me that transgression. Good morning, Andrea. So good to have you here with us. We're talking about othering and how it seems to be a dynamic, thanks, Lisa. It seems to be a dynamic of human culture to create a factionalism, an us and them kind of opposition that I think in a certain respect reinforces our own strength of identity in a really backward way. So if I can make you other, if I can point fingers at you as something other than me, then somehow in a backwards way I get a greater strength of identity, right? So even right now with the vaxxers and unvaxxers, there's this polarity, right? There's this you're at fault, you're to blame for this, that, and the other thing. And if only, if only the people that are not vaxxed would get vaxxed, then everybody would be okay. So there's like this projection of blame and responsibility. And that's just the most recent manifestation of this. I mean, I know that when we heard that that COVID came from China, that a lot of Asian people were being attacked and were in fear of their lives because people were making them the scapegoats. And it's a crazy dynamic that we have. And I think that in this community, we're striving to be awake and alert, and we get to look at who we've created as enemies. This is something that is really prevalent when we look at racism. It's blaming others for, or look at the issues around immigration and saying that that it's the people that are immigrating into this country that are stealing the jobs, and that they get to be they're scapegoated as well for a frustration and fear and perhaps a feeling of powerlessness around economies. But I mean, there's so many examples of this, not to mention, what we see in other cultures when there are genocidal wars. It's crazy, right? So let's see. Lisa says, I'm the only one at my job who got the V. I was out one day for a stomach bug and they made me get tested. I had to miss a week of pay because of their ignorance. So do you mean that you got it or you didn't get it? And I'm guessing that you're meaning you didn't get it and that you had to be out a week because of, yes. So there's, again, othering, it's fear. I can make you the object of my fear, right? I can make you the boogeyman, so to speak. Oh, isn't that interesting, Lisa? So Lisa got the vaccine and none of the people at work did. And then you got a stomach bug and they made you get tested and you had to miss a week. That's crazy. That's crazy. I wonder if there's any recourse it's interesting. I wonder if it's, like now that's a turn where, because you got the vaccine, you're the object of the crazy, of the othering. That's wild, wild, wild. So Isabel says that's the result of mind manipulation massively by the evil forces that have been creating our reality for centuries. Got worse. So, I don't know. I'm not at the place where I feel confident in believing that there is an orchestrated and unified overarching agenda of the manipulation that occurs in our culture. I am more inclined to think that there are many different types of manipulation that are occurring that aren't necessarily coordinated, but who's to say? I'm not the one to say for sure. But in any case, I do know that we are very, very heavily manipulated by our media and the advertising that we're exposed to, and indoctrination from our social groups, from our religious institutions. From it's like not all quote unquote enculturation is evil or has a malicious intent, but if I want a certain outcome, like as a parent, I'm going to indoctrinate my kids, right? I'm going to indoctrinate them into the things that I believe in one way or another, for good or for ill, right? Isabel says, well, history is repeating itself. Second World War. You know what, Isabel? I'm going to put this back in the chat in case you got in and didn't see it before, but I really recommend reading this article written by Charles Eisenstein, and he is talking about the rise of totalitarianism and how it often starts with, creating this scapegoat kind of thing. And Lisa says, yep, what gets me is they know their risk without it. They're in the public towing vehicles and they think I'm the risky one. Cracks me up. Well, Lisa, it's so interesting to me, the again, us and them, right? And it's situations like that you experienced that reinforce or encourage or support the othering, right? Because they othered you, and now it's like them, me and them, right? And I get it. I get that it's a perfect example of the dynamic. And I think that it's a natural response in a certain way. And at the same time, I think we really get to look at that and how we can overcome our tendency to be othering people, because, we've done it politically, regardless of what camp you're in, it shows up in all different ways. And at least you're able to keep a sense of humor about this, Lisa. So that's a really powerful and important thing. Good morning, Susan. So glad to have you joining us. Welcome. And Isabel says, people's conflicts are convenient for distraction of people. 100%, Isabel. I agree with you 100%, that it's another vehicle of manipulation to distract us with these considerations, with creating enemies that we can focus our attention on, so we're not paying attention to the other things that are going on. And Susan says, true. And Isabel says, I never thought it would be possible to live in a USA communist. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to communism in the USA, but there's certainly a lot of scary, scary hints on the horizon about which way we might be going. And I think that because this is a very precarious time, that those of us who are really deliberately pursuing presence and consciousness, it's beholden to us to really find bridges, to build bridges, to be ever more diligent in finding ways to communicate beyond this, to not engage in the othering. I know it's really tempting. It's really, really tempting. But we get to find a way to transcend it with each other somehow. So Lisa says the real hypocrisy is they're saying they deserve the right to choose. It's their bodies, yet it's the same group who want to take the choice away from women everywhere. So, okay, so this is an interesting thing, Lisa. I see where this group is identified with a bunch of beliefs. I totally get what you're saying, the contradiction there. And I think one of the things that we get to do is to recognize that we don't paint everybody with the same brush. You know, it's really challenging. I get what you're saying is, you know, I see that hypocrisy myself. When we talk about rights, it's, you know, this goes back to the notion that we believe that we're rational beings. We believe that we make rational decisions, right? What I've read through studies essentially says that in fact, what we do is we make emotional decisions and we have emotional reactions, and then we justify them rationally, that it's not the other way around. And so it's really interesting how we can hold contradictory beliefs at the same moment. You know, I have always found it very interesting that, although I'm sure it's not the case across the board, but that many people who are anti-abortion are also pro-capital punishment. And I found that to be very confusing. I don't understand that. And so like we're capable of holding contradictory beliefs, and I wonder how much of that is indoctrination versus rational thought, you know. Anyway, so Susan says, be positive, thoughts matter. 100% they do. And Elaine, welcome. It's so good to have you joining us. And I think, let me just see something here. Okay, so Isabel says, only staying in God's energy and be the difference we want to see. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. And I know that when there's confrontation, it's very easy to fall into this othering and this factionalism. And the factionalism gives us, at the same time that it's separating us from the other, it's reinforcing our own identity. And I think we get to release the need to define ourselves by that separation. We can see contrast And at the same time, I think it's possible that we can see contrast and also honor our differences without separation, without reinforcing separation. So Elaine says, I did a live yesterday on honoring the path, the one you're on, and others without judgment. And it all comes together in a beautiful way, even if it makes no sense to the human mind. And you know what, Elaine, you nailed that one. It does make no sense to the human mind. And this is where we were talking about logic and rationality. And this ability to transcend separation is for sure beyond the capacity in so many ways of rationality or logic. It doesn't make sense. And that's what we need to do, is defy that, to move beyond the bounds of what is logical and rational, and makes sense, and find ways to build bridges and to make connection. So Isabel says, we have to be strong more than ever with God, no matter how you believe in him. Love, love, love. Yes. So whatever in higher intelligence or whatever you find connection and faith in, whether it's your higher self or some other form of intelligence in the universe, whatever that connection is, maybe to nature, whatever, that in holding that connection, we can come back to a place of wholeness, hopefully. And I think we're challenged more than any time in history to find ways to create the oneness with one another and to transcend this othering. Good morning, Josie. So good to have you here with us. And so yes, everybody is agreeing it's all about love and connection. Yes, Lisa, she's sitting here very quiet today compared to yesterday. Oh my gosh, yesterday she would not stop talking. Today she's just pensive, I guess. Anyway, I think this is our biggest challenge. All of you who are listening, and all of us on a spiritual path, and all of us committed to creating a better world. This is our challenge, is to find the path to connection, find the path to building bridges, to understanding. And Elaine says, yes, we're all together in learning how to live in harmony with all of our differences, as learning is to remember that is to remember what you already knew. A walk to remember who you really are within love. I agree, Elaine, and we are perhaps more challenged, and it's growing more challenging over time to find our path to connection and building bridges. And Lisa, yeah, she is being reflective, right? I don't know, she's kind of blissed out this morning. So Elaine, is beautifully said. And I know it's really challenging. And I'm wondering if maybe when we're feeling like we're othering, perhaps we can look at that person is me, and what am I reflecting in my perception of that person? What am I seeing of myself in them? And I think that can be a very sobering question And maybe that's a place where we can start building a bridge. So Josie says, I'm not Christian, but I'm spiritual. And I think that there's so many of us here, Josie, that are not particularly religious, and yet also very, very spiritually oriented. And so not necessarily identifying with any particular doctrine. But anyway, it is always a pleasure and privilege to be with you all. Elaine says, yes, it is. We will have to stand up and stand strong in the truth. Absolutely. And the integrity within our hearts, and honor and respect. We had amazing masters come before us, Mother Teresa, Jesus, and many more, and follow their mission. And so shall we rock on. I love it, Elaine. Definitely, we are going to be rocking on. And like I said, I wonder when we experience this confrontation, hopefully there's a time, whether it's in the heat of the moment or later, that we can do this exercise for ourselves to say, that's me. What am I reflecting back to me from that other person? And thereby recognize our connection, that we are all one, that we are all one another, and that we reflect that back to one another. And I think that that's the quantum leap we get to make. So Josie says we all have to constantly look for ways to connect. And I think, I do think that when we look out on others as ourselves, that is a very profound exercise. So thank you, Susan, for being with us, and everybody. So that's it for today and for this week. It's been a really interesting, engaging week with you all, and I am so grateful. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And I invite you guys all to check out the other wonderful programming from Enlightened World Network here on their Facebook page, as well as Enlightened World Living and EWN, One with the Earth. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend, with so much love to you and so much appreciation for the time and energy and contribution that you make every day. So much love.